If chariots were found in the red water, it would probably have something to do with crossing the water. Think about an army that got misplaced and is now stuck under thousands of feet of salt water. Coral-covered chariot wheels, bones, and other artifacts tell a story that potentially changed the course of history. What if the biblical story of a pharaoh's army drowning isn't just a story, but a true event? Real event? This underwater treasure isn't just a find. It's a clock, a bomb that goes off in time. Things that are fragile are going away. And what the divers just found might change everything what we believed we knew about the past. Could we be standing on the border of a reality that has been hidden for a long time and is very well protected? The enigma under the ocean comes to light. The first sign that something strange was going on. Experts were perplexed by strange sonar data that showed something was below the Red Sea. The sonar didn't show natural formations. Instead, it showed shapes that were too symmetrical and accurate to be random. Deep sea drones went down into the Gulf of Aba and saw what looked like antique chariot wheels began to come out of the sand. These weren't just random pieces. They were plenty of them, wheels that were virtually well preserved, half submerged, and surrounded by coral. Divers were shocked. This find was unlike anything that modern archaeology had found under these waters before. Reports soon talked about thousands of metal parts, horse hooks, and broken wheels covering a very broad region. But even though it was mechanical, the find made the location feel like a tomb that had been frozen in time, a chilly undersea gravid that has to be understood. At first, I didn't believe it, but then I started to believe it more and more, believe that this was not just a normal shipwreck or metal debris from the last few centuries. The still complete breadth of the site wasn't evident yet, even though the findings were shocking. The strange debris was spread out in a way that looked like a lengthy string of dots. This design made it seem like more than one accident had happened. It gave a suggestion of an entire army's frantic and disorganized retreat. But what really happened here? And why did these relics stay hidden for so long? The clues told a story, but it wasn't ready to be told completely. The divers were careful since they knew that these fragile artifacts had been submerged for thousands of years. It was hard to dig up each item because they were covered in thick coral and other things. Dangerous job. They knew that touching these delicate objects could damage that can't be fixed. This was more than just a place for archaeology. It was a weak witness to a disaster from long ago. People quickly started to guess. Could this be the physical remains of Pharaoh's army that got lost under the seas during the Exodus in the Bible? The Bible says that chariots and horses sank to the bottom of the sea, and the results were eerily similar to that story. But scientists and archaeologists were hesitant to jump to judgments without strong proof. The mystery was getting deeper. This problem under the sea also made me feel uneasy. Questions. Why had such an important place been left alone and ignored for so long? Were there reasons, political or scientific, that hindered people from finding out about these hidden secrets? The deeper the divers went, it felt more and more like they were peeling back layers of history and resistance. The place itself made it even more interesting. The team was looking into coordinates that Ron Wyatt, an adventurer, had suggested more than 40 years ago. Mainstream academics had thrown out his radical claims. Wyatt had been said that Egyptian chariot wheels were on the bottom of the water here, but not without strong proof or permits. His story persisted in the realm of mythology and suspicion. Now, contemporary technology was checking to see if the truth might be more stranger and more complicated. Divers recognized that this site may change the course of history because of how big what they were finding was. But they also felt a darker truth beneath the surface, delicate objects, political strain, and a race against time to save evidence that is slipping away with waves. This was more than a discovery. It was a warning, one that asked for patient, careful, and keep your eyes open. As this old mystery starts to take shape, scenery that has been there for thousands of years below the sea becomes really important to grasp. The secrets are not just in the relics, but also in the land that kept them safe. The Gulf of Aqaba's geography. The Gulf of Aqaba is very far from a regular body of water. This underwater area close to what is now Jordan and Egypt is home to a huge flat land bridge that goes over 10 kilometers underwater. This unusual topographical feature is not found anywhere else in the Gulf, making a natural path under the waves. On either side of this piece of land, the seabed drops sharply to depths of about 5,000 feet. This Hugedi underwater plateau makes conditions that have helped keep fragile goods safe for thousands of years. The sudden drops and flat areas capture silt and coral, slowly burying and protecting artifacts that are on the seabed. It's a place where people can live and hide, making it hard to find ancient remains without high-tech tools. But this geography also makes exploring very hard. The margins are really deep, and the area is very big. Therefore, only the most advanced sonar and remotely operated underwater vehicles can find your way around it and make a map of it. In the past, this complexity probably helped explain why the site was so concealed and unexamined for so long. The Gulf Straits made it impossible for casual or incomplete inquiries to continue. The plus the fact that the area is geologically unique also makes what the divers found more important. When metal detectors found unusual patterns, they weren't expecting to find Bronze Age military relics behind coral-covered mounds here. But the water below the setting looked almost perfect for hiding an old battlefield that was buried under layers of sand and coral growing. One of the most interesting things is how this flat region could be the same road that Pharaoh Hesarmi ran away in a fright. The biblical story seems to show that items were spread out in a straight line to follow a frantic, disorganized retreat over this waterlogged bridge. The land itself, even if it was veiled undersea, fits with historical indications that have stumped researchers for decades. This terrain is also a natural trap. The land bridge keeps everyone who is trying to escape in check, pushing them into a tiny tunnel that would have been hard to get out of. This sad bottleneck could explain why so many chariot wheels and human remains were found here. It's a silent witness to a terrible occurrence that happened underwater. This kind of terrain is also rare in this part of the planet, brings up questions regarding previous shipwrecks or sinkings that weren't planned. Here are the remains there, not likely to be random or happen by chance. The setting calls for a story about a sudden calamity instead of slow loss. This makes the assumption that what is under the sea is linked to a single historical disaster. Learning about geography off the Gulf of Aqaba helps to explain why this old location stayed hidden below waves for thousands of years. It also shows why the finding is so valuable and vulnerable. Nature has kept these relics safe by keeping them apart, but it also made it more important to find them. This is a harsh aquatic climate has converted relics into gravestones. But it does have also made a puzzle with coral on it that the divers are just starting to put together. Coral graves and chariot wheels. The tangible proof that is coming out. Even the most experienced divers and experts are shocked by what they saw in the Red Sea. Hundreds of wheels for chariots photos have been taken of outlines. Their circular shapes are still there thanks to thick layers of coral that have hardened over time, hundreds of years. These wheels are more than just metal now. They have become into monuments under the water. Some have the conventional 4 spokes, some have 6 spokes, while others have spokes that are like those on ancient Egyptian war chariots, perhaps even 8. These wheels are not just old things. They are part of a huge expanse of debris that stretches approximately a mile across the seafloor. Their alignment in very flawless rows show that they used to be part of a line of chariots as the army tried to get away from tragedy. The pictures are both interesting and scary. A picture of panic frozen in time. Nearby, there are metal pieces like broken axles and horseshoes. This makes it even more likely that this was not an accident. The presensith wheels and horse-related items next to them give a clear picture of how mounted charioteers caught in a fight for their lives or an unexpected disaster. But the harsh these remains have not fared well in the water. Corrosion from salt water has destroyed the metal, and the tides keep moving sand and silt over the place. Coral growth, even maintaining shapes, also makes it impossible to clean and remove the artifacts without breaking them. This natural encapsulation protects the treasures and keeps them safe, but it also works as a jail, perpetually stuck below the surface. The excavating team took several quite scary pictures, one of which was of a wheel, shining brightly under coral with a strange golden glow. If this is true, could mean very fine craftsmanship or possibly a royal chariot used for ceremonies wheel. It's not clear if this golden piece still exists, but the fact that it has been seen adds a layer of a sense of mystery and urgency to the mission. Aside from corrosion, the volunteers and experts that do the dives often said it felt strange to touch these old things. Each piece recounts a story of a sudden disaster and loss. The wheels kept their shape even after thousands of years in water, which shows how special these sites' preservation conditions and the terrible things that happened there. Archaeologists who looked at Ramathathi samples showed that the metal's composition is similar to that of the Late Bronze Age, when chariots were the main mode of transportation in Egypt, fighting. This scientific proof links the items directly to the time period of Pharaoh Ramses II, who is usually associated to the tale of the Exodus. Careful sonar mapping shows that the wheels that are stuck aren't just sitting there. They are in a line that led, helping investigators learn more about the events that led to this undersea mass burial. The chariots convey a picture of military power that was abruptly broken and eaten by the ocean. But the truth that haunts is still there. These coral tombs are like ghosts that are very weak. Every year, salt water and changing currents nibble away at what there isn't much left. The revelation is more than just huge. It's a race against time to record history that is about to end, of disappearing for good. From these encrusted wheels, the story develops deeper into what else is below. Bones under the water. The finding oft-scattered bones made an already amazing scene much more human. Fine. There were hundreds of bone shards, some of which were plainly human and others of which were not. Horses were tangled up on the seafloor with pieces of chariots. These remains were not spread out randomly, but seemed like they were grouped together in manner that implied a rapid and brutal death. It is remarkable for that many bones to stay underwater for so long, which suggests a sad mass occurrence of death. As the divers looked more closely at the location, they started to put together a sad picture. It wasn't merely an accident or a piece of history from the battlefield. It was a grave for men and animals that died in a disaster thousands of years ago. The bones mirrored what would be anticipated of troops and their war horses, linking the bodies immediately to the chariot remains and the army that was thought to be fleeing. This made some feel even more strongly that the site was a picture of history that has been frozen in time. A moment of fear that will last forever under the sea. The human remains made the team feel very strongly. Looking at skulls, ribs, and spinach surrounded by coral and shattered weaponry, the dive had a serious feel about it. Somnity. This wasn't a treasure quest. It was a trip into disaster. One diver's haunting radio message, "This is not good," which showed how heavy what they had seen was. Hundreds of lives were lost. In an old, abrupt calamity. It felt like an undersea graveyard at the place where the human cost of history was clear. The presence of bones bolstered the notion of a military calamity, but it also raised concerns over what really happened. Was this the drowning off army of Pharaoh during the Exodus, or another fight that is not known? The amount of bodies and the way the items were arranged made it look like a mass drowning, instead of what usually happens after a combat. This small difference is very important for understanding how this historical tragedy happened. Some of the retrieved bits were tested scientifically, which made the tale. Looking at animal bones, such a horse head that was only half buried. Seagrass demonstrated that they were from breeds that Egyptian chariots used to utilize, cores. This link to Egypt's late Bronze Age military makes the place that is generally linked to the time of the Pharaoh Ramses I connected to the timeframe of the Exodus. These findings made what may have earlier been ignored as startlingly real myth. The compelling physical evidence nevertheless, the delicate condition of these remains hindered further investigation. Coral and marine growth covered several bones, making it almost impossible to dig them up carefully, unattainable without risking damage. Salt water always breaks down organic materials, and the divers knew they didn't have much time. These rare relics were fading away into the water, needing immediate attention but careful handling. The bones are scattered around here, along with broken chariot wheels. Bits and pieces of weapons make a disturbing picture of unexpected defeat and drowning. They turned the site from something that was just interesting to archaeologists into a strong reminder that people are weak when it comes to nature and fate. This sad scene under the waves is a lost moment in history that is still there but fading. For those who don't believe, the proliferation of bones led to skepticism and other possible explanations. Some people say because the Gulf of Aba has been around for so long, the remains could belong to people who died in shipwrecks in different centuries, a bustling shipping lane. But the size, location, and age of the remains made it unlikely that this was a recent or random maritime accident. The evidence instead strongly suggests a huge military disaster that matches what was written in ancient times. The fact that these human and animal bones were there made it more urgent to them and raised the stakes for protecting archaeological sites. The divers knew they had found a lot more than just things. They had unearthed the traces of a story that goes against what most people believe about history and the limits off between fact and myth. There is no way to tell the narrative of this disputed location without mentioning the man who first found it. His expedition's discoveries are still affected by his name and legacy. Ron Wyatt's legacy is contentious. Ron Wyatt was an adventurer who learned what he knew on his own. Is linked to the myth of Pharaoh's army that drowned. In the 1970s, thought they had found physical proof under the Red Sea. A field of chariot wheels and human bones that sounded like Keith's story of the Exodus in the Bible. These strong claims made him a divisive figure to followers, a pathfinder who shows them the history of God. Many Plescholars, a source of doubt and debate. Wyatt's history wasn't normal for an archaeologist. Without any training or academic credentials, he worked as a nurse and anesthetist in Tennessee without making a fuss. But propelled by believed deeply that the Bible was real history. And he spent a lot of his life looking for physical evidence from the Bible. His method mixed passion that came from religion with things that were not normal approaches, which made mainstream researchers distrustful but interested from groups of people who follow a religion. He made his first big claims, such finding Noah's Ark and the real Mount Sea, which made him into the public eye and getting a lot of bad press. He may be most well known for diving into the Red Sea in 1978 trip that caused division, with only minimal dive gear and a few supplies. Wyatt said they saw coral-covered chariot wheels and human bones on the ocean floor in Nibia Beach. He said that this discovery proved the Bible's story of Pharaoh's troops dying under the sea. Wyatt's statements were very explosive, but he never provided peer-reviewed scientific evidence, proof, or certified pictures that can be used for strict analysis. These official institutions refused to let him dig since he didn't have any real proof, give him permission, and say that his findings are not reliable. Academic journals would not publish his work, saying that it used basic procedures and interpretations based on religion instead of scientific rigor. But Wyatt's story took on a life of its own, spreading through cheap documentaries and religious groups. For those who believe in the Bible's Wyatt became a prophet-like figure whose insights were only to be believed to be accepted. Critics called him a phony and said that his results were not real, were wrong or made up because people wanted them to be true. This is still going on. Every new investigation into the site is affected by this debate. One of Wyatt's most disputed assertions was about a golden. Reportedly, the chariot wheel was found and given to the Egyptian government, shiny object considered to be the ultimate reward. But there is no proof. There has never been any proof of this piece's existence in images, museum archives, or official comments. This gap in the record has kept people guessing and interested. Leaving fate of the golden wheel is unknown. Wyatt also said not to move or remove the artifacts since he thought the coral growth kept their structure, but it rendered them quite weak. He said that if the artifacts were exposed to air, they would severely shatter, turning these undersea remains into dust if not handled correctly. This careful approach may have led to the decades-long delay in formal digging. His conviction that legal and political constraints impeded complete healing introduced an additional dimension of hardness. The site is in Egypt's tight archaeological authority, where taking artifacts without permission is a very bad thing to do. Wyatt said this was against the law. The barrier made it impossible for the public to see or analyze it, keeping the secrets hidden with the army. Even though there are problems with it, Ron Wyatt's legacy lives on. Due of the recent expedition's results are very similar to many of his earlier claims. The Echo's office unusual mission still makes historians and archaeologists think hard, making people think again about what might be waiting under the waves. These secrets of the Red Sea are still connected to the heritage of a lone adventurer, but new technologies and investigations are slowly revealing the truth behind the incredulity, the science and the technology that made the trip possible. The most recent trip that went below the Red Sea introduced technology to Ron Wyatt's world that had never been seen before. The squad that got together in late 2024 includes top divers, marine engineers, and underwater archaeologists. All of them had tools worth more than $10 million. Some of these were advanced sonar imaging devices that could make comprehensive three-dimensional images of the seafloor that show even the smallest problems that are concealed behind layers of sand and coral. Underwater vehicles that can be controlled from a distance and have high-resolution investors may see at depths and angles that no diver could reach with cameras with regular tools. These drones took pictures of angular that were very crisp, chariot wheels, axles, and groups of human and horse bones. The sharpness of this footage turned nebulous rumors into practically real proof, putting years of guesswork to rest. In excellent focus. Metal detectors moved along the bottom of the water to find the faint magnetic traces that old bronze and iron artifacts left behind. These readings found places where corroded but identifiable pieces were, which made it possible for so that divers can focus their efforts better. One surprise thing we found was that some of the metal matched the metallurgy that was common in Egypt throughout the Late Bronze Age, a major scientific link between technology and history. The team's method mixed faith-based motivation with rigid scientific rules to find a balance, respect for the delicate location, and the necessity for proof. Even with these safety measures, the item is still fragile, made any physical recuperation risky. The coral layers that protected the wheels and bones were Alsathir weak shields. If you bothered them, you might lose the very details you needed to understand this occurrence from long ago. This high-tech exploration was done in complete secrecy because of the find was really sensitive. A lot of the team members were veterans of the military who were used to working in secret, putting a new type of discipline into underwater archaeology. Their job wasn't just to check Wyatt's long-denied accusations, but they did so without causing any problems or getting involved in politics. The use of submersible scanners that could pick up even the smallest magnetic changes found an undersea field of garbage, going almost a mile. This was much more than most people had thought. Fard's site seemed like a big picture of a tiny group of antiques. An army on the run that was caught in catastrophe. Each element made things more complicated, proving the size of the devastation described in the Bible. Consultations from a fourth study team become more knowledgeable by working with metallurgists and archaeologists. This partnership between undersea experts and academics was helpful. Validate the results, giving legitimacy to allegations that had been on the edge for decades. This mix of technology, experience, and academic knowledge signified a pivotal moment for the investigation. But even with the best tools, there were still huge problems. Damage from hundreds of years saltwater corrosion, tide changes, and silt pressure had already caused several artifacts to fall apart. The team was up against natural degradation and knew that the time to document this site was running out quickly. The technology had opened up history, but it also showed a delicate truth that was fading away. No expedition of this size would have to deal with political and institutional problems that made every dive into these strange seas more difficult. Political and obstacles for archaeologists. Investigating one of history's most significant undersea enigmas has not been an easy trip. From the beginning, the project had to deal with a lot of political and bureaucratic problems. Requests for funding through standard academic and archaeological routes were completely turned down and called pseudoscience, or disregarded as conspiracy. This kind of doubt from official bodies showed a deep-seated opposition to re-examining stories that have been accepted for decades. Government agencies and universities were quick to laugh at the possibility of chariots from ancient Egypt, saying it was imagination and relaxing underwater. An official in charge of Israeli Antiques said that the whole site was just coral and a conspiracy. Behind the scenes, governments secretly told the team not to disrupt the seafloor because of fragile marine preservation rules. As a reason, it was evident that influential people were worried about what was under the waves. The divers were even more determined because of this resistance. Knowing that there was support within, it wasn't conceivable that the mainstream would help, but a small number of private backers stepped in. These went from daring billionaires to really dedicated biblical archaeology fans who had followed Ron Wyatt's controversialism for years. Their silent and private funding let the squad keep going without being watched by the public. Political meddling. Permits were obtained by pretending to do geological surveys, which was a cunning way to get around the rules. Should let the exploration of the ocean floor go on. We planned out every step with full freedom, as if the mission were a closely guarded secret. The stress of working off the books increased a layer of urgency and gravity. The team knew how important history was and how delicate their mission was. The doubt persists around the prospect that some administrations would intentionally hide or destroy evidence. Finding out. Divers said that Wyatt's original assertions from decades ago have it looks like a lot of the debris field has been changed, covered up, or even cleared out. People are wondering if Ludders or state actors might be removing evidence of this problematic find to maintain established historical stories from religious texts. At the same time, the scholarly pushback is still strong. Critics say that these items might have come from shipwrecks that happened more recently. Pointing Toth Gulf of Aba has a long history as a significant shipping route, but this theory doesn't seem to fit with these findings have a unique distribution, design, and dating that always match up, using weapons from the late Bronze Age. The disagreement keeps the arguments going. Debate. What comes out is a fragile battlefield that goes far beyond the seabed. A fight over truth, power, and changing history. The divers' work is both archaeological and political, questioning what powerful groups are willing to look into and accept. These treasures are under the waters, stuck in a race against time and against people who would want them to be forgotten. These kinds of stresses make a desperate fight for the past. As the divers move forward, they know that the biggest danger could not be rust or ocean pressure, but the pressures above water that keep a truth that is hidden, the proof that is disappearing, and the bad effects. The most disturbing divers are facing the harsh truth that things are becoming worse and worse. Quickly, the things that are. Under the Red Sea, what used to seem like a preserved undersea snapshot is now a weak ghost that is falling apart after hundreds of years in salt water, rust, and waves that never stop. These forces are slowly taking away the physical proof of what might be one of the most important occurrences in history, making every moment that goes by quickly. A lot of the metal and bone pieces are covered in coral and crustacean growth so dense that it is hard to clean them without breaking them. This natural preservation dilemma indicates that the artifacts are both safe and locked up and bound together by layers that can't be taken off without breaking their mains. The divers know that some things may never leave the sea since they are slowly dissolve in the deep instead than telling their whole story on the surface. Metallurgical analysis from Afar matched numerous pieces to the metalworking style of late Bronze Age Egypt. This scientific connection is important, but it also shows how fragile these treasures are. The corrosion isn't an immediate danger, but the effects of being submerged for thousands of years. But recent news point to intentional damage or interference, since many parts of the debris field seem to have been changed or cleaned since earlier investigations. There is a lot of speculation about why important areas of the site would have been methodiclitistry or covered up. Some people say that the government is involved to stop findings that could question long-held theological and historical beliefs. Some people blame thieves who steal things they shouldn't, make money from unregulated underwater theft. No matter what, the disappearing proof makes things seem more urgent and out to the search. Ron Wyatt said that the golden chariot wheel was the most famous missing piece to have gotten back. This golden thing was said to be smooth and shiny, unlike wheels with coral on them. But now there are no images, museum documents, or formal confirmations. It's going away adds to the mystique and makes people wonder what exactly happens after such amazing discoveries are made. The evidence is amazing for those who believe, and sad. The webpage is a strong proof of a story that has been told sacrosanct for thousands of years, linking ancient history and religious texts in a physical way. For those who are doubtful, the consequences are disturbing, making us rethink what we think we know and questioning the mainstream scholarly stories. What if one of history's most important stories is based on truths that haven't been looked at and are now at risk of being missing? Ever since Wyatt initially made his discoveries public, mainstream institutions have fought back hard. Critics say the items are just pieces of shipwrecks that happened more recently, pointing to the Gulf's bustling marine past. The size, shape, and metalwork, on the other hand, are too similar to those of an ancient army that was running away to be a coincidence. This inconsistency has sparked a heated debate that has both sparked interest and anger. In the end, the discovery's bad news is that it is weak and hard to find. What might be the actual remains of Pharaoh's lost army are at risk disappearing completely before scientists can fully understand them. Every fresh piece of evidence that comes in, it feels like history is slipping through our fingers when we let it go. A slow deterioration of truth under a lot of strain from people and nature. This disappearing deed makes a really important question. What if such a huge part of history could just go away? What else might be hidden, forgotten, or purposely buried? The sands below Red Sea not only keeps old secrets safe, but it also tests how willing we are to face the hard realities about the past and how it is kept track of. This incredible story from below the Red Sea tells of a magnificent discovery that makes us question what we thought we understood. The evidence shows a lot of things, from coral-covered wheels to human bones. An army that has been lost in time yet is disappearing before our eyes. If you liked this if you found this video as interesting as we did, please like it and sign up for more stories that reveal the secrets that lie beneath our world.